Thanks. I move Ceann Corla, the Mortgage Interest Rates Cap Bill 2023, put forward by People Before Profit. We initiated this bill last year, 2023, and that was in response to 10 interest rate hikes by the European Central Bank, impacting in this country tens and tens and tens of thousands of mortgage holders, working people who are trying to put a roof over their head, hammered again and again and again by interest rate hikes from the European Central Bank, where in the period between July 2022 and up until about April of this year, we saw interest rates climb from 0.5% up as high as 4.5%. So enormous increases in the repayments that people have to make, impacting in particular those whose mortgages are held by vulture funds and those who are held by bank lenders but who are on tracker mortgages that track the European Central Bank rate, or variable rate mortgages, or mortgages where the rate is only fixed for a year or so and then it becomes variable. All of these people vulnerable to or actually hit by shocking increases in the interest rates. There are 700,000 people in this country with mortgages. 95,000 of those are with vulture funds. There are 200,000 people on tracker mortgages. 35,000 of those are with vulture funds, and 165,000 are with banks. There are 186,000 mortgage holders on variable rates. So you can see an enormous group of people, tens and tens of thousands of people hit by these interest rate hikes, and as a result, many people in trouble. 47,000 mortgage holders, 47,734 to be precise, in arrears. 29,000 of those in arrears over 90 days. 60% of those, 17,420, in arrears for over a year. So many people really struggling with the impact of these interest rate hikes. And that's, of course, in the context of a wider cost of living crisis, where we've seen hikes in energy costs, in rents. Well, I suppose if you have a mortgage, the rent increases wouldn't necessarily affect you, but other increases in grocery prices and so on, impacting and indeed cuts in real terms because of inflation in the value of people's incomes. To give you a few instances just that I'm aware of that give you some flavour of the impact, one constituent of mine in 2020 was paying on her mortgage, she's a single working mother, was paying €1,170 per month in 2020. Currently, she is paying €1,965. At its peak, it had gone up to €2,009 per month. There was a 0.25% reduction in the ECB rates just recently, but even with that tiny reduction, she is still paying more than €800 more than she was paying in 2020. A massive hit, and paying a 5.6% rate, because as well as these rate hikes happening all over Europe, in Ireland people are paying significantly over the ECB rates, and so are hit even harder, more dramatically, by the interest rate hikes. Variable for the non-banks who have variable interest rates, the vulture funds are charging 6.09%. On trackers, they're charging 5.59%. And similarly, that's with the vulture funds, and the banks charging 4.07% for variable and 5.6% for trackers, and some paying considerably more than that. Now, critically, in all of this, the banks that are doing this and the vulture funds are making an absolute fortune. The permanent TSB, who owned the mortgage of the single working mother I mentioned, saw their profits increase last year by 71%. Enormous jump in their profits. The Bank of Ireland, the biggest mortgage lender in this country, saw their profits jump last year by 92%, up to €1.9 billion. These same banks are also depositing tens of billions of euros with the European Central Bank and are actually profiting from the hiked interest rates, and so are making money on the money they deposit with the European Central Bank, while they are absolutely crucifying ordinary working people trying to cope with these absolutely shocking increases in their mortgage interest repayments, to the point, for many, many people, it is simply unsustainable. And in the face of this, the government has done almost nothing. Almost nothing. Certainly nothing that would significantly impact on the dramatic impact that people are experiencing as a result of these interest rate hikes by banks that are raking it in terms of profits. So, what does our bill do? Against that background, it proposes a cap on mortgage interest rates set at 3%, so that they can't profiteer and that they can absorb the European Central Bank interest rate hikes using the enormous profits they have made, which have increased dramatically over recent years. If the net effect of that is to drive the vulture funds out of the Irish market, we would be very happy, just to say that. Because some people will say, well, they won't want to operate here. Good. We don't need them. In fact, I was talking to someone the other day who's an expert in this area who says, to add to all of this, the vulture funds are now securitizing some of their mortgages, so you can't even deal with them in the way you can deal with a bank, even a bank that's ripping you off, because they're securitizing the mortgages into bundles, speculating essentially with people's debts. Another dimension to this problem. So we are saying, let's cap the interest rates at 3% so they become sustainable for ordinary working people. They don't find themselves in arrears and they're threatened with the loss of their home. Finally, before I hand over to Deputy Murphy, I want to say that some people will say, oh, you can't possibly do that. But in fact, in Belgium, France and Italy, at least of three countries that I know of, in Western Europe, they have reference interest rates and a mechanism whereby banks cannot charge above a certain amount above those reference rates. So what we're arguing for is not that radical. It is entirely doable, particularly given the profits that are being made by the banks. And when you consider we bailed out the banks to the extent that we did, who are now making enormous profits, isn't it right, fair and just that we would bail out mortgage holders who will be absolutely crucified and crippled by these mortgage interest hikes?